He desert wind carried whispers of death across the rocky terrain of Afghanistan's Kunar province. Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez adjusted her position behind the weathered boulder, her ghillie suit blending seamlessly with the shadows cast by the crescent moon. At 28, she had already earned a reputation that made even seasoned Navy SEALs nervous. Tonight, that reputation would be put to its ultimate test. The forward operating base had received intelligence about a high-value target meeting scheduled for dawn. 5 enemy snipers had been positioned throughout the valley to protect the gathering, each one a ghost in their own right. The SEAL team tasked with the mission had been confident in their approach until their commanding officer received an unexpected briefing. Commander Jake Mitchell stood before his 8-man team in the cramped briefing tent, his weathered face illuminated by the flickering LED light. The smell of gun oil and sweat hung heavy in the air as he spread the topographical map across the metal table. "Gentlemen, we have a problem," Mitchell began, his voice carrying the weight of years spent in combat zones. "Intelligence suggests these aren't ordinary shooters. We're dealing with trained professionals who've been operating in this region for months without detection." Petty Officer First Class Danny Torres, the team's lead sniper, leaned forward with a skeptical expression. "Sir, with all due respect, we've been hunting snipers since we arrived in country. These guys can't be that different." Mitchell's eyes moved to each man in turn. "That's where you're wrong, Torres. These 5 have eliminated 12 coalition forces in the past month alone. They move like ghosts, strike without warning, and disappear before anyone can get a bead on them. Our previous attempts to locate them have failed completely." The tent fell silent except for the distant hum of generators and the occasional crack of settling metal. Each SEAL understood the implications. If they couldn't neutralize these threats, the Dawn mission would become a slaughter. "That's why we're bringing in specialist support," Mitchell continued, pulling a folder from his tactical vest. "Meet Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, Army Special Operations. She's got 63 confirmed kills and specializes in counter-sniper operations." Torres exchanged glances with his teammates. "A woman?" "Sir, no disrespect, but this is SEAL territory. We handle our own problems." Mitchell's expression hardened. "Rodriguez isn't just any soldier, Torres. She's the reason 3 different terrorist cells in Iraq stopped operating at night. They called her the shadow that kills shadows. If anyone can track these ghosts, it's her." As if summoned by their conversation, the tent flap rustled and Maya Rodriguez stepped inside. She moved with the fluid grace of someone completely comfortable in hostile territory. Her desert camouflage was worn but meticulously maintained, and her equipment was arranged with the precision that spoke of countless missions. "Gentlemen," she said simply, her voice carrying a slight southwestern accent, "I understand you have a sniper problem." The SEALs studied her carefully. She stood barely 5 feet 6 inches tall, but something in her dark eyes suggested a predator barely contained beneath a calm exterior. Her black hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and a thin scar ran from her left temple to her jawline. "Rodriguez," Mitchell acknowledged, "brief the team on your assessment." Maya moved to the map, her finger tracing the elevation lines and marked positions. "I've been studying the kill patterns and terrain for the past 6 hours. These aren't random shooters. They're working as a coordinated team with overlapping fields of fire and predetermined escape routes." She pointed to 5 different positions marked in red on the map. "Based on ballistic analysis and witness accounts, I believe they're positioned here, here, and here." Her finger moved precisely across the topography, with 2 mobile elements operating between these ridgelines. Torres studied the marked positions. Those locations would give them coverage over the entire valley approach. "How do you propose we eliminate targets we can't see?" A slight smile crossed Maya's lips. "Simple. I don't plan to see them. I plan to hunt them." She pulled out her own tactical map, covered in notations and calculations. Each of these snipers has a comfort zone and operational pattern. They've been successful because they're fighting conventional forces who expect to spot targets before engaging. I don't need to see them to find them. "Explain," Mitchell ordered. "Every sniper leaves a signature, Commander. The way they choose positions, their preferred shooting lanes, how they manage their escape routes. It's like a fingerprint. I've been analyzing their previous attacks, and I can predict where they'll be tonight." Maya traced a route across the map. "They expect your team to advance along this primary approach. They'll be watching these natural choke points and elevation advantages, but they won't be expecting someone to hunt them from behind their own positions. Petty Officer Second Class Mike Santos spoke up. You're talking about infiltrating 5 different positions in complete darkness across hostile territory. That's not tactics. That's suicide. Not if you understand how they think, Maya replied calmly. These snipers are confident. They've been untouchable for months. Confidence breeds predictability, and predictability creates opportunity. She pulled out a tablet displaying thermal imagery and topographical data. I've identified their likely infiltration routes based on previous patterns. They'll move into position approximately 3 hours before dawn to avoid satellite detection. That gives me a 4-hour window to locate and neutralize each target. Torres shook his head. Even if you could find them, taking out 5 snipers in 4 hours while moving across unknown terrain is impossible. You'd need to cover over 6 miles of mountain territory, which is why I won't be using conventional approach methods, Maya said, opening her equipment case. Inside, the SEALs could see specialized gear they didn't immediately recognize: sound suppressors, thermal dampening equipment, and custom ammunition designed for silent kills, she explained. I've also got climbing gear and electronic countermeasures for any night vision equipment they might be using. Commander Mitchell studied the proposed route carefully. Rodriguez, even with specialized equipment, you're talking about an extremely high-risk solo operation. If you're compromised, we can't extract you without exposing the entire mission. Maya's expression remained steady. Sir, with respect, I didn't survive 63 engagements by taking unnecessary risks. I know what I'm doing. She pointed to specific locations on her route. I'll move along this ridgeline using natural concealment. The first target is approximately 2 miles from the insertion point. Based on his previous kills, he prefers elevated positions with multiple escape routes. There's only one location in his sector that meets those criteria. Torres leaned closer to examine her route. You're planning to approach from above. That's a 1,000-foot climb in the dark, which is exactly why he won't expect it, Maya replied. Snipers position themselves to watch approaches from below and at elevation. They rarely consider someone climbing above their position. She continued outlining her plan. The second target operates along this ridgeline. He's been responsible for 3 kills in the past 2 weeks, all during early morning hours. He likes positions that offer concealment but also allow for rapid movement. Maya's finger traced another path. I estimate I can reach his position within 90 minutes of eliminating the first target. The key is maintaining noise discipline and staying below the thermal detection threshold, Santos interrupted. What about backup? If one of these guys gets lucky and spots you first, then you proceed with the original mission, Maya said without hesitation. The dawn operation is more important than one soldier. The tent fell silent as the weight of her words settled over the team. These men had faced death countless times, but something about Maya's calm acceptance of potentially lethal odds impressed them. Commander Mitchell made his decision. Rodriguez, you have authorization to proceed. Torres, I want your team in position to provide overwatch for the final approach. If Rodriguez succeeds in clearing the sniper threat, we move on the primary target at dawn. Maya began packing her equipment with methodical precision. Each piece of gear was checked, tested, and secured according to a routine that had kept her alive through dozens of similar missions. One question, Torres said as she prepared to leave. How do you plan to confirm your kills without compromising your position? Maya paused and looked at him directly. You'll know when they're down because the shots that would have killed you tomorrow won't come. As she prepared to disappear into the night, Maya felt the familiar calm that preceded her most dangerous work. The desert stretched before her like an ocean of shadows and hidden threats. Somewhere in those shadows, 5 men waited with rifles and the skill to use them effectively. But Maya Rodriguez had something they didn't expect. She had the patience of a hunter, the skills of a ghost, and the absolute certainty that before the sun rose over the mountains of Afghanistan, she would be the only sniper left alive in the valley. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of cordite and dust across the barren landscape. Maya adjusted her gear one final time and stepped into the darkness, beginning a hunt that would either end in victory or death. There was no middle ground in her world, and tonight, she preferred it that way. The clock showed 2,130 hours. Dawn was still 7 hours away, and Maya Rodriguez had work to do. Maya Rodriguez moved through the darkness like liquid shadow, her boots finding purchase on rocks that seemed impossible to navigate in complete blackness. The specialized night vision equipment strapped to her helmet transformed the treacherous mountain terrain into a green-tinted landscape of opportunity and death. Every step was calculated, every breath controlled, and every sense focused on the hunt ahead. The first target's position lay 2 miles northeast of her insertion point, accessible only through a narrow canyon that channeled wind and sound in unpredictable ways. Maya had studied this terrain for hours, memorizing every contour and identifying potential hazards that could compromise her approach. The enemy sniper had chosen his location well, but he had also made it a trap for himself. As she climbed the steep incline leading to the canyon entrance, Maya's mind cataloged every detail of her surroundings. The wind patterns would mask her movement but could also carry her scent or the sound of displaced rocks. The temperature differential between the valley floor and elevated positions would affect her thermal signature. Most importantly, the enemy sniper would be expecting threats from below, not from the direction she was approaching. The canyon walls rose nearly 300 feet on either side, creating a natural funnel that had channeled rainwater for centuries. Maya used the carved handholds and footholds left by erosion to ascend silently along the eastern wall. Her gloved fingers found grip points that would have been invisible to anyone less experienced, and her climbing boots distributed her weight across surfaces that could support her without creating noise. After 30 minutes of careful ascent, Maya reached the elevation that would allow her to approach the first target's position from above. According to her intelligence analysis, the sniper would be positioned on a ledge approximately 400 yards ahead, with clear sight lines down into the valley where the SEAL team would eventually advance. She paused to check her equipment and assess her physical condition. The climb had been demanding, but her breathing remained controlled and her hands steady. The custom suppressor on her rifle was secure, and the specialized ammunition designed for silent kills was loaded and ready. Most importantly, her thermal dampening suit was functioning properly, making her virtually invisible to heat-seeking detection equipment. Maya resumed her approach, moving along the ridgeline with the patience of someone who understood that haste was the enemy of success. Each step was tested before committing her full weight, and she frequently paused to listen for any indication that her presence had been detected. The night sounds of the Afghan mountains provided natural cover, but they could also mask the sounds of an enemy who had spotted her approach. As she drew closer to the target area, Maya could smell the distinctive odor of gun oil and unwashed clothing that indicated a fighter who had been in position for several hours. The enemy sniper was maintaining proper noise discipline, but human scent was impossible to completely eliminate in close quarters. Maya estimated his position to within 10 yards based on the strength and direction of the odor. She found a position 30 yards above and behind where she calculated the sniper was located. From this vantage point, Maya could observe the terrain below through her scope without exposing herself to return fire. The natural rock formation provided excellent concealment while offering multiple escape routes if the situation deteriorated. Through her rifle scope, Maya could see the subtle signs that indicated a well-concealed firing position. A slightly unnatural shadow along the rock face, a small area where the natural debris had been carefully arranged, and most tellingly, the faint reflection of starlight off a lens or metallic surface. The enemy sniper was exactly where her analysis had predicted. Maya took her time studying the target and his position. The sniper was a professional who had chosen his location with skill and prepared it carefully. His rifle was positioned to cover the primary approach route the SEAL team would use, and he had clear escape routes planned. However, his position was optimized for targets approaching from below, leaving him vulnerable to attack from his current blind spot. She calculated the shot carefully, accounting for wind speed, temperature, and the slight downward angle. The range was approximately 40 yards, well within the effective range of her suppressed rifle and custom ammunition. More importantly, the trajectory would allow her to eliminate the target without creating noise that would alert the other snipers in the area. Maya controlled her breathing and settled into the familiar rhythm that preceded a precise shot. Her pulse slowed, her vision sharpened, and the world narrowed to the space between her rifle and the target. Years of training and combat experience had taught her to find the calm center that existed in the midst of lethal violence. The shot was perfect. The specialized subsonic ammunition struck the enemy sniper in the base of the skull, killing him instantly and silently. Maya watched through her scope as the man slumped forward, his weapon falling harmlessly against the rock ledge. The kill was confirmed, and the first threat had been eliminated without alerting the remaining snipers. Maya immediately began moving toward the second target position, knowing that time was now her most precious resource. Each minute that passed brought the dawn closer and increased the risk that the remaining snipers would detect her presence. The second target was located approximately 1 mile southwest of her current position, requiring her to traverse a series of steep ridges and narrow passes. The route to the second sniper position took Maya across terrain that would have challenged an experienced mountaineer in daylight. In darkness, it required skills that bordered on supernatural. She descended the canyon wall using a controlled rappel that allowed her to move quickly while maintaining silence. Her boots touched down on the canyon floor without creating noise that would carry beyond a few yards. Moving across the valley floor required different tactics than the previous approach. Here, Maya was exposed to observation from multiple directions and had to rely on natural concealment and her thermal dampening equipment. She moved from shadow to shadow, using rock formations and sparse vegetation to break up her silhouette and mask her movement. The second sniper had chosen a position that overlooked a different section of the valley approach. Maya's intelligence analysis suggested this individual was responsible for several kills over the past month and operated with a level of professionalism that matched her own. This target would be more challenging to approach and eliminate. As Maya began the ascent toward the second position, she encountered evidence of the enemy's operational security. Carefully concealed tripwires had been strung across potential approach routes, and small piles of loose rocks had been positioned to create noise if disturbed by an intruder. The second sniper was clearly more paranoid than the first, which meant he might also be more alert to threats. Maya spent precious minutes identifying and bypassing the warning systems without triggering them. Each obstacle required careful study and precise movement to overcome. The tripwires were nearly invisible in darkness, requiring her to use her hands to carefully trace their paths before stepping over them. The noise traps were more obvious but required equally careful navigation. By the time Maya reached a position where she could observe the second sniper, nearly 2 hours had passed since her first kill. The clock was becoming her enemy as much as the human targets she was hunting. Dawn was still several hours away, but she needed to maintain her schedule to have any hope of eliminating all 5 snipers before sunrise. The second target was positioned behind a carefully constructed blind that would have been nearly impossible to detect from below. Only Maya's elevated approach angle allowed her to identify the fighting position and the sniper within it. Like the first target, this individual was a professional who had prepared his position with skill and attention to detail. However, Maya noticed something that the first sniper had not possessed. Night vision equipment was visible near the second target's position, suggesting that this individual had the capability to detect movement in conditions that would blind less equipped opponents. This changed the tactical situation significantly and required Maya to adjust her approach accordingly. She spent additional time studying the target's equipment and behavior patterns. The sniper moved occasionally to adjust his position or scan different sectors of his assigned coverage area. These movements were disciplined and purposeful, indicating someone with significant combat experience. Maya timed the intervals between movements and identified the pattern that would give her the best opportunity for a clean shot. The range to the second target was slightly greater than the first, approximately 60 yards across a gap that offered no natural concealment. Maya would have to take the shot from her current position and trust her equipment and skills to deliver a silent kill. Any noise or visual signature could alert the remaining 3 snipers and compromise the entire mission. Maya prepared for the shot with the same methodical precision that had served her through 63 previous kills. The wind conditions were different at this elevation, and the angle was more challenging than the first engagement. However, the fundamentals remained the same: controlled breathing, steady position, and absolute confidence in the shot placement. The second sniper died as silently as the first, Maya's bullet finding its target with surgical precision. Through her scope, she watched the man's night vision equipment tumble from his lifeless hands, knowing that one more threat had been eliminated from the valley. 2 down, 3 remaining, and time was becoming increasingly critical. Maya began her movement toward the third target position, knowing that the most challenging part of her mission lay ahead. The remaining 3 snipers were positioned in a triangular formation that would allow them to provide mutual support if they detected a threat. Eliminating them would require her to move through their overlapping fields of observation while maintaining the element of surprise. The night was far from over, and Maya Rodriguez had 3 more ghosts to hunt before dawn could bring safety to the SEAL team waiting in the valley below. Maya Rodriguez crouched behind a weathered boulder, her breathing controlled despite the physical demands of the past 4 hours. 2 snipers lay dead in positions they had believed were impregnable. But the most dangerous part of her mission was just beginning. The remaining 3 targets were positioned in a defensive triangle that would allow them to observe each other's sectors and provide mutual support if threatened. The 3rd sniper occupied a position on a steep ridge approximately 800 yards from Maya's current location. Unlike the previous targets, this individual had positioned himself where he could maintain visual contact with the 4th and 5th snipers. Maya's intelligence analysis suggested this was the team leader, the most experienced and dangerous of the 5 enemy shooters. Moving toward the 3rd position required Maya to cross open ground that was visible from multiple sniper positions. The natural approach routes were covered by overlapping fields of fire, and the terrain offered minimal concealment. Maya knew that conventional infantry tactics would result in detection and death. She needed to use methods that the enemy snipers would never expect. Maya opened her equipment pack and retrieved specialized climbing gear that had served her in similar situations. Instead of approaching the 3rd sniper's position directly, she planned to ascend the cliff face below his position and attack from an angle that his defensive preparations had not considered. The climb would be extremely dangerous in darkness, but it offered her only realistic chance of reaching the target undetected. The cliff face rose nearly 600 feet in a series of narrow ledges and crumbling rock formations. Maya began her ascent using techniques that combined military climbing skills with the precision of a professional mountaineer. Each handhold was tested before trusting it with her full weight, and every movement was calculated to avoid creating noise or dislodging rocks that could alert the sniper above. As Maya climbed higher, she could hear the subtle sounds that indicated human presence on the ledge above her position, the occasional scrape of equipment against rock, the soft whisper of fabric moving in the wind, and the nearly inaudible sound of controlled breathing. The 3rd sniper was maintaining excellent noise discipline, but complete silence was impossible for anyone spending hours in a confined position. After 45 minutes of careful climbing, Maya reached a ledge that positioned her approximately 20 feet below and 30 feet to the side of the enemy sniper's position. From this vantage point, she could observe her target through her rifle scope while remaining concealed behind natural rock formations. The sniper was exactly where her analysis had predicted, positioned to cover the valley approach while maintaining visual contact with his teammates. Through her scope, Maya could see that the 3rd sniper was equipped with sophisticated gear that matched her own capabilities: night vision equipment, suppressed rifle, and communication gear that would allow him to coordinate with the other snipers if threats were detected. This individual was clearly the most professional of the 5 targets, and eliminating him would require perfect execution. Maya studied the target's position and behavior patterns with the patience of someone who understood that rushing would mean death. The sniper moved occasionally to scan different sectors of his coverage area, but his movements followed a predictable pattern that Maya could exploit. She timed the intervals between movements and identified the moment when the target would be most vulnerable to attack. The shot presented significant challenges that Maya had not faced with the previous targets. The angle was awkward, requiring her to fire from a position that compromised her natural shooting stance. The range was greater than her previous engagements, and any noise would immediately alert the remaining 2 snipers to her presence. Most critically, the 3rd sniper's communication equipment meant that his death might be detected by his teammates even if the shot was silent. Maya made the decision to disable the communication equipment before eliminating the target. Using a technique she had perfected in Iraq, she aimed her first shot at the radio equipment positioned near the sniper's head. The specialized ammunition destroyed the communications gear with minimal noise, leaving the target confused but unable to alert his teammates to the threat. The second shot killed the 3rd sniper before he could fully comprehend what had happened to his equipment. Maya watched through her scope as the man slumped forward, his weapon falling silent on the rocky ledge. 3 down, 2 remaining, and time was becoming critically short. The 4th and 5th snipers were positioned approximately 400 yards apart along a ridgeline that offered them overlapping fields of fire and mutual support. Maya knew that eliminating one would immediately alert the other, creating a tactical situation where she would face an active enemy who knew her approximate location. This required a completely different approach than the careful stalking that had served her with the previous targets. Maya descended from her position and began moving toward a point that would allow her to engage both remaining snipers in rapid succession. The terrain forced her to expose herself to observation from both positions, but she calculated that the risk was acceptable given the time constraints she faced. Dawn was less than 2 hours away, and the SEAL team was depending on her to clear the sniper threat before they advanced. As she moved across the broken ground between ridge lines, Maya felt the familiar heightening of awareness that accompanied extreme danger. Every shadow could conceal a threat, every sound could indicate detection, and every step brought her closer to a confrontation where speed and precision would determine survival. This was the type of engagement that had earned her reputation as one of the most effective counter-sniper specialists in the military. Maya reached a position that offered concealment, while providing sightlines to both remaining sniper positions. The fourth target was positioned approximately 200 yards to her left, while the fifth sniper occupied a fighting position 300 yards to her right. Both targets were alert and professional, scanning their assigned sectors with the discipline that had kept them alive through months of combat operations. The tactical problem was clear. Maya needed to eliminate both snipers before either could react to the death of his teammate. This required precise shot placement and timing that allowed no margin for error. Maya had practiced similar scenarios during training, but executing them in combat conditions against professional opponents was entirely different. Maya decided to engage the closer target first, hoping to eliminate him before the more distant sniper could identify the threat and return fire. She settled into a shooting position that would allow her to transition quickly between targets, while maintaining concealment behind the natural rock formation that sheltered her position. The shot that killed the fourth sniper was perfect, but Maya knew that the fifth target would immediately recognize the sound of his teammate's death. She was already transitioning to her second target when muzzle flashes erupted from the distant ridgeline. The remaining sniper had identified her position and was returning fire with professional skill and deadly intent. Maya felt the impact of bullets striking the rocks around her position as she acquired her final target through her rifle scope. The enemy sniper was good, very good, and his shots were coming dangerously close to finding their mark. Maya had perhaps 10 seconds before the incoming fire would force her to abandon her position or risk being killed. She found the target in her scope and fired without hesitation. The bullet struck the fifth sniper in the chest, but Maya could see immediately that the shot was not fatal. The wounded enemy was still moving, still fighting, and still capable of killing her if given the opportunity. Maya fired again, and this time the target went down permanently. Silence settled over the mountain valley like a blanket. 5 enemy snipers lay dead in positions they had believed were unassailable. Maya Rodriguez had accomplished what an entire SEAL team had considered impossible: hunting and eliminating professional killers in their own territory during the hours when darkness gave them every advantage. Maya checked her watch and saw that dawn was still 90 minutes away. She had completed her mission with time to spare, but the physical and mental demands of the night's work had pushed her to the limits of her endurance. Every muscle in her body ached from hours of climbing and precise movement, and her hands trembled slightly from the adrenaline that was finally beginning to fade. She activated her radio and contacted Commander Mitchell with the message he had been waiting to hear. "Thunder Base, this is Ghost Hunter. The path is clear. Repeat, the path is clear." Mitchell's voice crackled through the radio with barely contained relief. "Ghost Hunter, confirm 5 targets eliminated." "Confirmed," Maya replied. 5 enemy snipers neutralized. Your advance is clear." As Maya began her extraction route back to the forward operating base, she could see the first hints of dawn beginning to appear along the eastern horizon. Soon, the SEAL team would advance through the valley that had been a death trap just hours before. Their mission would proceed without the threat of invisible killers waiting in the shadows. Maya Rodriguez had once again proven that no position was unassailable and no enemy was unbeatable if hunted with sufficient skill and determination. The SEALs who had questioned her capabilities would have a different perspective when they learned the details of her night's work. 5 professional snipers had believed themselves to be apex predators in their mountain domain, but they had encountered something more dangerous than themselves. As the sun rose over the mountains of Afghanistan, Maya Rodriguez disappeared into the morning light, leaving behind 5 empty sniper positions and a legend that would be discussed in military circles for years to come. The night hunter had completed her work, and the dawn belonged to those she had protected with her deadly skills. The SEAL team's mission proceeded without incident, successfully eliminating the high-value target they had been sent to capture. When they later examined the positions where enemy snipers had been eliminated, they found evidence of professional preparation and sophisticated equipment that would have made their advance extremely costly without Maya's intervention. Maya Rodriguez had demonstrated once again why she was considered one of the most effective counter-sniper specialists in the world. 5 enemy shooters had learned too late that being invisible in the night was not enough when hunted by someone who had mastered the art of being a ghost among ghosts.